So before I read the agenda item, I would like to share information about the requirements and the process for addressing vacancies during a board member's term. Of course, we will discuss this more after I share this background. So Title 26, Section 13A-110 of state statute requires that the board make an effort to appoint an eligible individual to a vacant seat. Board member Barba Perez's resignation will take effect following our next regular meeting on Monday, January 23rd, and I'm sure that the members of this board share my commitment to minimizing the amount of time that the constituents of District 2 are without dedicated representation of the board. As I understand, and Dr. Marshall, you could maybe confirm this or tell me otherwise, it has been a long-standing practice to minimize a vacancy so that all Tulsans are represented. Vice President Croissant and I, as board leadership, asked Dr. Gist and Ms. Pizzone to assist with information regarding past experiences with resignations. We also received relevant legal guidance from counsel. Then we worked to develop a proposed timeline and plan that we believed would ensure continuity of representation for District 2. I'll review that and then we can discuss the proposal. Applications for appointment to represent District 2 will open this evening following the board's vote on board member Barba Perez's resignation. We are proposing, and we'll talk about this in a minute, that the application will be open until January 18th at 5 p.m. This timeline provides more than a week for interested individuals to submit their applications while allowing time to confirm that applicants meet the requirements for board service and giving the board an opportunity to review applications in advance of the next regular meeting. We will meet at some point prior to appointment as an executive session that with applicants, and then they will also have an opportunity to, if they want, to provide public comment before any action is taken. We also worked with the communication team about how to ensure that this is shared broadly in the district. I can share more about that, but let me hold on that until we discuss what I've shared so far. So now I'll introduce the item relating to the acceptance of board member Barba Perez's resignation for discussion. So this is only in regard to the resignation. Agenda item L1 is a recommendation that the board accept the resignation of Judith Barba Perez, Board of Education member representing election district number 2, to be effective January 23rd, 2023, after the adjournment of any meeting of the board on such date, and to declare such office be vacant. Do I have a motion to accept the resignation itself?
Move approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I was going to say you're out of luck. And is there any discussion with regard to this resignation?
I'd like to amend that.
This is just in regard to the resignation.
Indeed.
Okay.
Do I have to make a new motion or can I just ask?
Well, we have a motion on the table, so we'd have to vote on that first.
I'm asking the attorney.
Okay.
May I amend this motion? Make a motion to amend? Okay. I make a motion to amend that we accept the resignation effective tonight.
Okay. Do I have a second on that motion? Second. Okay. Do we have any discussion with regard to that motion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Dr. Marshall? Aye. Ms. Burke, as this item is directly applying to, could you turn on Ms. Burke's microphone, please?
We cannot force board member Barba Perez to have an earlier resignation date than the one she is proposing. So I apologize for not connecting those dots as quickly as I should have. So your amendment would actually not be appropriate in this situation. I didn't realize what the amendment would be till you made it. Thank you.
So now I need to know how to proceed with the motion and second.
Okay. So right now the pending motion is solely to accept the resignation being proffered by board member Perez.
Can you explain to me why my amendment is not appropriate?
Because she has the control on when she would like to resign. And she proffers that offer of resignation, and you can accept it, but you can't change her offer.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Okay, Ms. Lampkin has a question.
So the intention of the applications being due next week is that then we would be able to appoint someone as soon as the resignation is official?
Say that again. I'm sorry. I want to make sure I understand.
We want to try to appoint a new person basically right after her resignation, or will there be a gap?
Well, we don't know that yet.
But the goal is
the goal would be to minimize the amount of time without a gap. But so right now we are voting whether or not to accept Board Member Barba Perez's resignation.
Not the date.
Well, the date is effective. Yes, the date of the resignation.
No,
is
I mean,
effective.
not
anything
the
about the
other
application
part of
process.
it.
Yes.
So first there's that, and then the discussion about the rest of what was proposed, the date and so forth.
Yeah. So right now we are voting whether or not we will accept Board Member Perez's resignation, which will be effective January 23rd, 2023. Dr. Marshall.
Aye.
Ms. Barba Perez. You can abstain.
Abstain.
Ms. Lampkin.
Aye.
Mr. Croissant.
Aye.
Ms. Ashley.
Aye.
Dr. Griffin.
No.
And I. Thank you, board members. We now need to ensure that we agree on the deadline for accepting applications for the appointment. I would like to propose, after the request of Dr. Griffin, that we make that deadline January 31st, 2023 at 5 p.m. Do I have a motion to approve this recommended deadline?
What happened there?
I'm sorry.
What just happened?
To amend this, that the deadline to apply would be through January 31st, 2023 at 5 p.m. Do I have a motion to approve this recommended deadline?
And you're just opening discussion.
This is just a motion, and then after which we'll have the discussion.
Move approval.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, now we can have a discussion about this proposed deadline. Any comments? Dr. Marshall?
I think I'm the only one here today that's been through this. I believe that prolongs it too long. I think based on previous experience, and I think I've been through this about 3 or 4 times. I would think the 20th would be an acceptable deadline, and then hold interviews on the 25th and 26th. That's basically what we've done in the past.
Okay, I think just my own feedback on that. We would obviously need to make sure everybody has calendars available for the interview on the 25th and 26th, but we can certainly plan to shoot for that. So you're proposing the 20th, okay? Any discussion with regard to that? Or would you like to officially make a motion to do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just I have not been on the board for an appointment, but I was part of a process for an appointment. So that is in line with the way that it went 4 years ago in District 5. So I think what Dr. Marshall is proposing makes sense on what I remember from being on the other side of the process.
Okay. Let's just see what people have to say, maybe. Dr. Griffin?
Mr. Burke, may I make a motion on this one?
Can we keep
I can't hear you.
Ms. Burke's microphone on just because she may be called upon again?
Could you please state what you'd like to do? I couldn't quite hear you.
I would like to make a motion that we don't appoint anybody and wait for the election process in 60 days.
Okay, let's work with the first amended motion, and then we'll proceed with any other amendment.
If that passes, my motion's moot.
Well,
It's on the floor.
We already have one amended motion on the floor.
Where's Robert when you need him?
Do we have any further discussion with regard to potential dates or
Yeah, well, I'll comment on that since I can't make a motion. You know, I believe in the electoral process. If we do not appoint anybody for 60 days, the governor will call a special election. Did you have
That's
que-
not correct. I'm sorry.
I think that is correct, but
No, we must, the board must call a special election.
well,
if
somebody's going to
appointment-
call a special election. Let's put it that way. And I just believe the people have a right to pick who they want to represent that district instead of we 6 people picking someone. So that's just my thought.
I agree with you on that point. It is, however, the statute that requires us to at least attempt. That doesn't mean we'll get there, but we do have to make an attempt to appoint an eligible individual to take that vacant seat.
Well, as long as I'm around to say that I prefer election, I can go along with the attempt. I have no objection to the
Sure.
attempt.
Okay, so
My second question would be, when exactly would we vote for this person?
well, first we have to decide how long we will have for applications, and then we would have a relatively quick turnaround as far as when those interviews would happen. And then we would have a public meeting of the board. And Dr. Marshall, you might be able to remind us the timeline historically.
Would Ms. Perez be allowed to participate?
She would not,
Okay, thank you.
regardless of when we did it.
Thank you.
What I proposed is basically the timeline, in that on the 23rd, if I remember correctly, at that particular board meeting, those individuals, well, it may not work that way because we'll still be open to taking applications. So the first meeting after the close of the application process, that's when the candidates were, applicants were allowed to speak and tell something about themselves to the board and to the public.
Okay.
So I can foresee that we may even have to push it to the first meeting before we actually make a decision, first meeting in February.
Okay.
But that's pretty much how the timeline went. But that gives ample time for those interested to fill out the application and speak with their families because of the commitment they're about to embark upon, should they be selected.
So we currently have a motion and a second for the timeline being the 31st. We would need to vote on that or vote to table it. Right, it's already amended. So, or vote to table it prior to doing a revised timeline of the 20th.
The table would be to the entire,
many things.
the concept. Yeah. So
Yes.
let's just vote. If you don't want the 31st, then you can say no and we
So-
can have a different.
So we are
proposal.
going to vote now on the proposed timeline of the applications closing on January 31st, 2023 at 5 p.m. I will call for the vote. Sorry, Dr. Marshall,
No,
Ms. Barba Perez,
Abstain.
Ms. Lampkin,
No.
Mr. Croissant,
No.
Ms. Ashley,
Yes.
Dr. Griffin.
Yes.
And no, that brings us then to,
Can entertain another.
if another motion, is there another motion to be entertained? Dr. Marshall.
let's see. I move that we set the application dates through January 20th, end of business day, and set interviews for 2 days the following week.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a second. Any discussion with regard to this date? Ms. Burke,
Can we confirm the close of business
Close
would be 5 p.m.?
5 p.m. on Central. Any discussion with regard to that?
And then
Mr. Croissant?
I do remember that the initial application process, everyone spoke at the board meeting, which would be on the 23rd. And then they narrowed down the applicants from, I believe there were 12 down to 6. So are we going to narrow down the applicants, or are we going to hear all of the applicants, and does it matter based on how many people apply for the position?
You would hear,
Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
you would hear all of the applicants, and during the interview process, the first day of interviews, we would hear from all applicants. At the end of that process, the board will narrow the field down to, I think the last time we did it was narrowed down to 2.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. And so I think we could at least say that the opportunity to speak, if this were approved, we would have the opportunity for these applicants to come to the meeting on January 23rd to speak publicly prior to the next step then. Okay. Any other questions about or comments on this date?
Can you clarify what we're voting on?
Yes, Dr. Griffin, we are now voting that there would be a deadline of January 20th, 2023 at 5 p.m. for the closing of the applications. Okay, I will now call for the vote. Dr. Griffin.
Present.
Miss Ashley.
Yes.
Mr. Croissant.
Yes.
Miss Lampkin.
Yes.
Miss Barba Perez.
Abstain.
Dr. Marshall.
Yes.
And yes. Okay. So we made it through that. And as shared, members of the public can find information about the application process, district boundary maps and boundary descriptions, and a link to the application on the district website at www.tulsaschools.org/board. The new boundaries for District 2 include Emerson, Kendall-Whittier, McKinley, Mitchell, Owen, Sequoia, and Springdale Elementary Schools, Union Learning Academy, Carver Middle School, Booker T. Washington High School. I'm sorry, I realized I was talking very quickly for you, Ms. Truesdale. And Will Rogers College Middle and High School. If you are a voter registered within the Tulsa County Election Board at an address located within the neighborhoods around those schools for at least 6 months, you might be eligible to submit an application. I want to urge folks who live in those areas to visit tulsaschools.org/board to learn more and consider throwing their hat in the ring. Now let's move on. Or Dr. Giss, did you have something to share real quick?
I just wanted to make a commitment to the board about that we'll be working to try to get information out and doing everything we can so that the residents of District 2 have the information they need. So sharing it on our website, of course, but also social media. We will be sending out multiple emails directly in using our TPS email that you get an alert typically on your phone, go through the email or the link. We'll also be sending printed versions of the application to all of the schools in District 2 for anyone who doesn't feel as comfortable or doesn't have access. And of course, in English and in Spanish. In the front offices there, we're also going to have copies of the map, written descriptions of the boundaries, particularly given the boundary changes. This is a new district boundaries. So all the information about the process, the maps, the requirements to serve, because there aren't many, but there are some requirements, are on our website or will be, are on, Emma? Will. Okay, we'll shortly be on at tulsaschools.org/board. So I just wanted to confirm that.
For more information, you can visit tulsaworld.com.